time warp between here and Gould Academy. If you're not careful.
It's a good thing it's just around the corner, huh?
I know. All right, I'd like to call the November 5th meeting of the Bethel Board of Selectmen to order. I'd like to start out this evening with our Citizens Forum. Is there anyone here who has anything that's not on the regular agenda that they'd like to bring up? All right, hearing none. Approval of minutes from September 17th, October 4th, and October 15th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented for those three meetings.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All right. Next, I'd like to open a public hearing for a liquor license renewal for Chosun Restaurant. Any comment from the public? Hearing none, close the public hearing and go to the select board. Any comment on Chosun?
Everything's in order?
Yes, it is.
All right.
I make a motion that we approve the liquor license renewal for Chosun.
I'll second.
All in favor? That's all set. I'd like to open another public hearing for a liquor license and entertainment permit renewal for Sunday River Brew Pub. Any comment from the public? Hearing none, close the public hearing and move to the select board.
Again, everything's in order on our end?
Yes, it is.
I make a motion to approve the liquor license and entertainment permit for Sunday River Brew Pub.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? All right, next up, Dean Richmond is going to tell us about the ongoing food waste program.
I am Dean Richmond. I have a little handout for folks.
Thank you, Dean.
Thanks.
Standing's a little formal. I'd rather sit. So, last, I think it was August of 2017, I was here before you folks and talking about food waste. Just for your recollection, I have a farm in Mason Township, and on that farm, sounds like a I have some cows. I have about 40 head of cattle, and winter is pretty long here, and there's a lot of bedding, a lot of animal ag waste, and I've been composting that for a number of years. And recently, 2 years ago, the DEP folks whom I met at an event at the gym had asked if I was interested in composting food waste as a way to offset, the growth around the landfills, or preventing it from getting, burned, or other types of ways of getting rid of solid waste. And so I thought it was a good idea and kind of worthy to do. So I did it for just a pilot and for free, just to do it and see if it would be feasible. It turned out that it worked pretty well, and so I decided to, but of course, like everything else, it takes time and money to do. Most of the time spent is in the collection process, so getting it from A to B. Once I have the food waste at my farm, it's pretty easy to manage. It's something that I do anyway with my compost, so it's just kind of a function that I already have standing, and adding more volume to the function really doesn't matter so much because I have a machine ready to do it. So over the last year, since we had the program started, been able to divert over 100 tons of food, and the majority of that from Sunday River, but more businesses have signed on. The summer was pretty busy. I think probably a peak month was in July, and we were able to pull off about 30,000 pounds of food Again, most of that coming from Sunday River, but even this last month, we're going along like a 20,000 pound a month clip, which is good. I really, though, wish that we could do more, and I think there's certainly more to do. When things are busy, even for the restaurants that I do manage, you know, it kind of feels like you're holding your cup up against a waterfall, and your cup is filling up, but there's so much sliding by, because you really don't have enough cups out to, or people don't quite have the muscle memory to, you know, stop putting it in the trash and, you know, put it into the bin. So I applied for a DEP grant and was awarded one to increase the capacity in terms of the collection service itself and the processing service. So I'm going to be changing up a little bit the, I guess the equipment and the method in terms of collection. It won't really, it'll be seamless to the people that I'm currently serving. It's just that I've been traveling a bit to Vermont. They have legislation around food waste in Vermont where restaurants have to compost their food. They don't have a choice. I guess they do, but it wouldn't be a legal one. So there's quite a robust food waste recovery system that occurs in that state. And so I learned a lot from going there, and I learned a lot of the lessons that they had learned. And so I'm going to be using that to, you know, lessons learned in order to put down maybe a little less of a mistake-prone system. So, you know, today I've got in the Bethel area, Bethel Inn, Gould Academy, Steam Mill Brewery, Brian's Bistro, and Crossroads Diner, and they're all doing really well. The people like the service, particularly the kitchen people. I'm doing a task that's even more grosser than the person that's cleaning plates, so they like that. I'm okay with it. So I really do wish more restaurants would sign up. Been asking a few, and I'm getting more no's and yeses, so it's a little frustrating, but I'll keep plugging along, and if you folks could put in a little kind word, or that would be helpful too. If you have any questions of me now, I would be happy to hear them.
So how many did you start out with? How many businesses?
It was principally, the pilot program was Sunday River and Mount Abram, and it was mostly the Summit Hotel and the Jordan, and a little bit of Southridge, and the Mount Abram was both sides. I ended up stopping Mount Abrams because, I mean, they changed management a lot, and there's just a lot of turnover, and it's hard to train people and keep people excited about it when there's constant turn. So I really didn't have a lot of success at Mount Abrams, but I'm not giving that up, but it's just for now.
I checked that.
Yeah,
Management's changed.
I heard,
Yeah.
so I'll be looking again. So that was what I started with, and
How many
It's
is
a-
it now?
I think I have a list here, it's something like 7 or 8.
Bethel Inn, Brian's Bistro, Crossroads,
Oh, right here.
Gould, and Steam Mill.
Yep.
So what do you hear as the primary excuses not to be involved?
It's a little, there's no one, but I'm looking to put the diversion process in high volume restaurants, because, you know, a bed and breakfast is great, but I probably make more money just getting cans on the side of the road. There's just not enough volume to support, you know, me doing it. So those bigger restaurants, like Sudbury Inn and others, they're tight on space, it's a little, you know, the kitchen's a little quirky, they've tried to, over time, to tune things the best they can, and they're just really afraid that the tail's gonna wag the dog, and they'll have production problems, and they don't want that. So that's really the biggest hurdle.
Are the, so, and currently, if I'm not mistaken, and someone can tell me I'm wrong, the way, for example, business dumpsters work in Bethel is that the business buys or rents the dumpster, and then the town of Bethel pays for the, we've discussed it, it pays for the trash to be emptied. And I think at one point we discussed whether we should look at that and see if there was a way in that system that we could, or by changing that system, that we could make the cost of compost a deduction for those businesses so that we didn't have to pay to dispose of the compost at the trash rate, when we could pay at the compost rate, which I think is lower than
Yeah.
our fees for trash. So that's maybe something we could think about or look at in the future, is just saying to businesses, everything's the same, but if for every pound of compost that you divert appropriately, we'll give you a discount somewhere in the difference between what you charge and what we have to pay to do the trash. And that would probably make everyone work better, as opposed to penalizing, you know, if you still want to throw it in the trash, you just pay more for it.
Yeah.
Or you don't get the, you wouldn't pay more, you would keep paying what you're always paying. If you diverted it, you would get some kind of benefit from that.
And I think that, you know, I probably don't do a good enough job educating when I'm trying to pitch it, and it takes probably 3 or 4 or 5, you know, just like any sales job, right, to knock on the door 3 or 4 or 5 times, and maybe the 5th time they might nod. So I need to devote more time to do that. Unfortunately, I'm just one person, and I can't hire myself to do that so well. But you know, I think education is also a really important incentive, because when, you know, and I've been educating myself more about it. Before, I was a little bit oblivious as to the environmental impact of doing what we're kind of currently doing, which is putting it in the dumpster. It's really not a good thing at all. Like, all the way around, it's just not good. No matter what you believe in terms of global warming, it's just plain out good. But I don't know if there's, I think, and probably it's kind of the problem of the system that we set up, where everything is just kind of thrown into a can and it disappears and goes away. So it could be that the incentive system might help. I'm not sure. I mean, I think, you know, these high volume restaurants in the middle of winter, when they're serving 300, 400, 500 plates a night, you know, $20, you know, this is a high volume, low margin business. And, you know,
How many times do you go and pick stuff up there? Like once a week, once a month,
usually twice a week,
twice a week?
and when it's busy, like 3 times a week. And, you know, certainly the maintenance folks and everybody's happy because things don't smell so bad, and so, yeah, they like that. I don't like to handle smelly, stinky, old rotten food either, believe me.
Right, so the more often you do it, the more.
Yeah, I don't, yeah, there's no incentive for me to,
And this comes at no cost to the restaurants?
correct.
Right.
I place the totes at the restaurant, and, yeah, there's no cost to them. There's no,
But there's no cost to them for trash either.
Right.
So,
Either way, it is.
other than the rental of the,
yeah, the
Dumpster.
rental dumpster, yeah.
But there is a cost to the town because we're paying.
Oh, yeah, no, we're paying more, I believe we're paying more per ton of trash than we are per ton of compost. It's,
I don't wanna, I only know what I know,
Right,
what
yeah, and I
I know,
don't have
so
the
I don't
numbers
wanna
right
say
now.
what they're charging, but when I struck at the time, I priced myself like 2/3 the cost of the tip rate, so I'm like 62, and at the time, they were like 95 a ton. And I don't charge any transportation fees, and I think at the time, they charge 90 or $100 an hour. So-
Right, right. So we should look at that and see if we can find a middle ground that we're happy with and offer that as an incentive, which would benefit everyone all the way around.
Have you talked to the local bear population? These dumpsters, they kind of like it.
Yeah, it's true. You know,
Uh,
unfortunately, I haven't had any, knock on wood, any kind of varmint or vector issue, with the cans. And at my compost pile, the only annoying thing is more crows, but other than that, I haven't had any bear or anything at my piles at all.
Wow, that's surprising.
Dean, when does your contract with the town, it was you signed a 1-year contract, and it runs out in,
In August of, this coming August, I think, yeah. I'll have to, now that you mentioned that, I'll have to look at that. When that-
I should have prior to the meeting, but I know that, that's about what I've been told, and the things that you've been talking about as far as, changes should be best talked about then, probably.
or anytime, I mean, it could happen anytime, it seems to me. Because it doesn't seem like it would change his agreement with us.
I am very respectful of the fact that you, in fact, are the boss.
Yeah, and, you know, again, for me, I really, for me to financially make it work over the long term, I have to really triple the volume of what I'm doing today. I've gotta be bringing down like 50 ton a month and there's certainly the volume out there, the weight out there to do that, for sure, and it wouldn't even, I feel like right now I'm maybe putting a little bit of a dent in it, but there's so much volume out there. Once you're kind of on that side of the process, it's big, it's a lot.
No doubt.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Absolutely, worthy
sir.
cause.
All right, so next on the agenda, for discussion and possible action is an update on the status of the wastewater project.
You know, when, in 2 or 3 months down the road, some of you that, whose memories might be a little challenged, might say, who was that David Hope guy? And you'll say, oh yeah, he was the guy that was always talking to us about the sewer. So here we are. I've spent, most of my time here in Bethel with Rich. We've spent way too much time together. It's not a healthy thing. Both of us want time with other people. But here's where I believe we're at. I did not find a better way to finance the project than with rural developments. I don't think that there's any sense in rebidding it because the prices have been going up dramatically in the recent time, and the contractor that you have is experienced and has a good reputation. You don't have a lot of money in the contract that you have for supervision, so if you're gonna be in that circumstance, you better be in it with a contractor that has a good reputation. So I don't think you're gonna save money by rebidding it, and you would spend quite a bit on advertising and mostly on engineering to do it. T-Buck has agreed to hold the price and hold the agreement for until when?
The end of the year.
In the end of the year, while Bethel decides whether it wants to go ahead with the project or not. I have talked a lot with Rick, and he knows a lot more about the Bethel sewer than I do. But there are a few things that he has convinced me of. And one thing is, he taught me this today. I'm gonna try to get it right. I'm gonna try to say it the way you taught me. Sludge is a byproduct of the sewer plant. It always has been, it always will be. So you're going to have an efficient way to dispose of the sludge. That's why you have the dewatering piece of equipment. I know that some time ago, not by Richard, not by me, by other folks, you were sold on the idea that you would take this piece of equipment and you would go out and you would haul it behind a trailer and you would go around to other locations and you would do dewatering for them. Whether or not that was the right story to tell at the time, it's not the right story to tell you now. That's not going to happen. The process does not lend itself to being hauled with the trailer that you have and the size of the piece of equipment that is around to do it. You have 3 employees, and so I don't know how you're going to send 1 or 2 of them at a time around to other places to do dewatering when you've got a plant to run. You know, I just don't, and this piece of equipment, you haven't run it enough, so you don't know fully how fast it's going to be. Its main purpose ought to be to do Bethel's dewatering. Get that down, and what decisions you make in the future, come what may, but I wouldn't ever make a decision to do this dewatering with this piece of equipment on the notion that you think you're going to rent it out to pay for it, because I don't think that's what its purpose is ever going to be successfully. I think it's here, and I think you should do your dewatering with it. Now, a challenge that you told me about today was it's getting harder and harder to get rid of this sludge. So, I talked with you, Andy, quite a bit this week, which I really appreciated your discussing it with me. If you don't dewater the sludge, you have to put it in these big bags. And then you have to haul it somewhere. And it leaks. So it leaks on the road when you haul it there. And these bags are heavy and hard to handle. And what do the bags cost? $1,000 a piece for these bags. So, yes, that's only one cost, but there's no process that you entertain is going to be completely cost-free. So, given the size of your staff, and if you care about what you're asking them to do, you should make their job as easy and safe as you can. And the dewatering equipment is probably the best answer to that. You already have the piece of equipment that you bought. You already have the design that's put out to bid. You already have a contractor waiting in the wings. So I suggest to you that what I'm asking you tonight is just put it one step further towards the town meeting where people would vote whether or not they want to borrow the money and pay for this. It's been going on for 7 years, and it's time to resolve this. I know I forgot some of the things you told me to say, but what do you want? I'm just here for a little while, doing the best I can.
I think that, as we were saying, that we're in the wastewater business, we produce sludge. It's always been an issue on the different options we've had. one of the things I think a weak point in designing wastewater plants around the state is they build these plants with no dewatering. So we've reached a point where, we used to take our sludge, lime stabilized, put it on the sludge site, we had more storage, put down a tank, which I think we've all been through the history of this one tank that's down. So it makes it difficult, we can use a bag. The last bag we did was, I don't have the same control you have with this Uber, we've been able to run it a lot this summer. And the bag was real soupy, wet, maybe it didn't sit long enough to dewater, but if the polymer use is a lot greater when you use a bag. I don't know if we had too much polymer in, it helps clog the bag, and it doesn't run out of the bag, it sits in there. And we were able to have it trucked off, and we were able to truck it off to Lopter, which was a good option for us right now, though.
Where's that located?
Lewiston, Auburn, this Lewiston Auburn compost facility, it's in Auburn. The only downside of that right now is that they're closed. The DEP has shut them down, and I don't know where they are in the negotiations, so that means right now, I presently have to take our sludge to Hawk Ridge up in Unity, which is obviously more money for trucking and what have you. It worked well for us this summer in our dewatering process. We got a little dump trailer to put, 4 or 5 yards in that, and drive down to Auburn with it. Worked really well. When you take a real wet sludge from the bags and it goes into the trailer dumps, now we've had to try getting in the back of a trailer, which isn't the safest thing, I don't think. When they have the gate open, you have to go up inside it and spray it with oil, because they took the first bag down, which wasn't even as iffy as this one, didn't come out of the trucks. So that's an issue right there. And I said to the last trip, if this happens again, you're gonna have to come back to the plant. We're gonna have to clean that out of the trailers. Because I can't have that residue behind and then to haul something else afterwards. Fortunately, it came out a little better. I don't know if oiling the inside of the trailer dump helped, or maybe it was soupy enough to come out, but it was a really wet deal. We couldn't haul it very well in our equipment. They had to seal the tailgates.
The town clerk was wondering if you could describe the soupy waste.
The town clerk would know.
He knows more like what cow manure is. I guess that's the best, it looks a lot like cow manure.
Yeah.
So is it like analogous to a transfer station? You compact the waste before you haul it because it's much more efficient.
Well, if we dewater to a drier material, then you're not hauling water, which costs you money to haul. So one of the pluses of trying to get a drier, we call it a cake,
Yeah.
is that it should weigh less than a wetter material. So you pay less if you're paying by the ton, or you produce maybe less product because you're dewatering more and end up with a more dense, drier
So
material.
wherever you haul it to, they're gonna charge you either by the weight or by the volume of what it, of what this.
Lewiston Auburn was charging us by the yard, which I think is a good way to do it. Hawk Ridge will charge us now, they charge by the ton.
So, but either way, the dewatered material is gonna be less expensive to get rid of.
Well, the better it's dewatered, right, because it will be lighter.
And that's gonna continue.
Well, the
forever
other
as far as-
disadvantage of the bags, I can't do that in the wintertime. So if we don't proceed with having a way to do it in the winter, then we have to proceed with other options of rebuilding a tank, at an expense, and then that's the only place on the site where the building was engineered through the soil analysis to go.
And you told me you thought, at one time, I thought I heard you say that that tank would cost about $100,000.
Well, I think easy 80 by the time the tank line is done, and you have to do some asphalt work to help fill it in place, and then a new fence around it.
So, given these all, if I was a select board member and I was sitting here listening to this, I would say, geez, this is an unpleasant message that I'm hearing. But what I think Rick and I are trying to say is, we think this is, although none of this is particularly going to make you gleeful, we do think that this is the best advice for the long run for the town. that's why we keep coming back with this, even though we've had some more downs than ups with trying to develop this project. But I guess in a way, I can see why it's taken 7 years to get to this point, but I think it's time to go forward with the plan that's been the most consistent in the last few years. So anyway, I recommend that you put this before the voters for special town meeting. And the reason that I would recommend a special town meeting as opposed to one that I normally would recommend at the annual town meeting would be this, is you need to take advantage of the next construction season. And in order to do that, you've really got to get the project financed and ready to go. It's not a good idea for you, and there are some safety concerns down there that need to be fixed. And I wouldn't feel good if I thought you were gonna wait through another year trying to figure out what to do. And there's a bunch of stuff and a bunch of things to be addressed that most efficiently are addressed if you do them all at once and just get it behind you. And you should do that the next construction season as well as you can. The alternative's gonna be is you're gonna have to rebid this in some form. And the message I get from everywhere I ask, they say the prices have just continued to go up in the recent times. I'm sure it has to do with the economy, the health of the economy. The people who do this work are busy.
All right. Any questions, any more questions from the select board?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I don't know if we can, they may not be questions we'll be able to answer right here tonight, but if we can answer them down the road, that would be helpful. You know, I mentioned it in our last meeting, I'm not sold on the dewatering thing for a number of reasons, through no fault of anyone that's here. But I'm still, you know, of the opinion that we should kind of scrap that idea. I think we made a mistake with it, and we should look at fixing what needs to be fixed down there, and continuing with what we've been doing. The cost of these bags and the cost of the trucking is there, but it's nothing compared to the cost of this building. It's nothing compared to the cost that and I understand some of these expenses we've already kind of bitten the bullet with some of them, and we can't get them back, which that part is what makes this so difficult. I tend to wonder if we would be so on board with this if we hadn't spent the money we've already spent. And I'm afraid that that's driving the decision here. So it pushes me in one direction, and you know, this money we've already spent. There's nothing we can really do to get it back. And sometimes continuing to spend money isn't always the option. Sometimes it is. To me, you know, I'd be interested in knowing the cost of fixing everything that needs to be fixed down there. With the idea, and maybe that includes that second tank, which we can't operate. And that, you know, when I say that, I'm talking about pumps. You know what needs to be fixed down there, and just have, at the very least, have that cost to give to the taxpayers when they ask us questions like, was there a cheaper alternative that was still efficient? I mean, I think we should at least try to look into that as much. I understand we can't have it engineered, probably, that, God, that is an unbelievable cost.
The only thing is that you have 400,000 of free money that's still there.
Yeah.
You won't get that without engineered and bidding up.
Right.
So you wanna throw that for, I just asked.
No, I'm just
that's-
looking for kind of a preliminary, like a preliminary cost, I guess, and then if we thought it was a serious route, then we could go forward with that stuff.
And what would we do with the present dewatering equipment that we own now?
I mean, my solution would be to try to sell it, or we've eaten the cost of it. I mean, it's a big pill to swallow, but so is, what was that, $1.2 million or 1.4? I just think we should at least consider it and at least know what a rough idea of what those numbers are. And if we go forward with this and we're looking at, do you have any idea what the rate increases would be?
If you take, let's say I can convince you to have this special town meeting, and let's say I can convince the voters to vote in favor of this, taking on this debt, then the rate holders, the ratepayers won't notice the difference, because they're paying off debt this year, which, if you remember, caused us to lose what we originally thought we were going to get some grant money, and then it turned out that because this has dragged on so long, you've paid off some debt, so therefore we lost some of the rural development grant money because we don't get any more grant money. So the two debts about cancel each other out. The one we pay off, the payments on that would be about equal to the one that you'd be taking on. And they're structured such that,
So essentially, the town as a whole is gonna be bearing the burden of that upgrade.
No.
It's still the ratepayers.
So
No.
it still is on the
all the
ratepayers.
the ratepayers pay the debt, and they'll continue to pay it, but they won't have the burden of the debt that they're paying off this year.
Okay, so the rate essentially, in theory, they could have gone down.
Yeah,
If
if
we
you
didn't
don't
have
take
to-
if you don't take this, your rates will
Right.
go down. They'll be less. But you'll have some problems at the plant that need to be addressed that won't be.
So the other part of that is if we're gonna move forward with this and we're gonna continue to have what I believe are high rates, I've compared them to a couple other towns, and then I think we need to seriously consider changing how we determine what those rates are and who pays that bill. Because right now, the sewer department is funded by the ratepayers alone, but yet the town of Bethel as a whole makes decisions on what happens to it. And I use the example of myself because I live off of the sewer, so I don't pay sewer fees, and I don't pay the water fees for the water district either, and a lot of people in town don't. But yet we're making decisions that affect a group of people in town who have to pay. It's not going to cost me any extra money if the sewer rates go up, but at the same time, I think that it probably should if I'm partaking in the decision. And the town of Bethel took on this whole thing as a town, years ago, and the town of Bethel hasn't really footed the bill so much as the ratepayers have footed the bill. And we kind of overbuilt the plant, that's my understanding, at least back 20 years ago. We don't have the volume that we need to really make it, to keep those rates down. I think that we need to consider how we do that. That's a very unpopular stance, and I should probably not be bringing that up in a year that I might have to run for election again. But I think it's worth noting, and it's a solution to keep the rates down on the ratepayers, but yes, it would obviously impact the taxpayers, as a whole. Of course, the impact on Bethel taxpayers would be significantly less than just the ratepayers. Do you have any idea how many ratepayers there are, approximately?
650-ish.
650-ish? And
We have,
And they have to,
we're
and
working
they're the
also
ones-
on the dwelling unit study, which might increase that base. That's still in the
Right.
works.
but that's still gonna, a lot of that is still the same people.
Yeah,
So 650 customers have to pay this amount back?
Big 10 4.
That's gonna be a big fight.
But
They've already been paying.
they've been paying, they've been paying these types of notes since, during the history of it's not new, it's
Right.
what they're used to.
So then essentially, they're not looking at a rate increase, they're just not looking at a decrease that they potentially could have got if everything down there was good to go.
Now, Andy
Okay.
has to maintain his septic tank, he has to pay to get it pumped out.
Right.
If it messes up too badly, he has to have it rebuilt. That could be many thousands of dollars, so it's not all the poor ratepayers. I mean, they certainly do get a good benefit. Lots of folks who've been through the great costs on the other side of that coin would love to be on the sewer. The way government works, I've talked to little kids all my life since I've been a manager. And the thing that I tell them is that the day that government makes sense is a rare and beautiful day. Because there are many days when it doesn't seem to. The Bethel sewer is not a district. It is a town department. And there are many services that the town provides that not every citizen benefits from all the time. Even education, with your most expensive service. A lot of people who live in the town don't have children, you know. So you could live here throughout your life and never have a use for the sheriff's department. So it's not totally unrealistic to be a ratepayer and have to pay for the service. It's just a way to pay for it.
Well, that's kind of the opposite though of what I'm saying. When you live in this town and you pay for the sheriff's office, but yet you never use them, you're paying and not using it, which is what, you know, me as a citizen on the flat road, I essentially would be paying some for the sewer but not using it. So that would kind of put me in the same boat as all of these other departments, the way I would see it.
I told you when you hired me that I was old and that I would sometimes make mistakes. And I may have not won that argument with myself.
Yeah, and Andy, I would say that, you know, I think we're talking about, I appreciate what you're saying, and I think we've had that discussion a little bit before about whether we need to restructure the way sewage gets paid for in the town, and that would require a vote of the town, which would require, you know, the majority of the people in the town to vote themselves a tax increase, which is a challenge. But I don't think that decision necessarily needs to be part of this decision. I mean, you could link them, but I think that makes it too complicated. I think, you know, we need to decide whether or not, or the people need to decide whether or not we should go ahead and do what needs to be done at the sewage treatment plant to bring us up to safety standards and everything else that goes with it. And then if we decide that that's, you know, if the town also decides that that's financially unfair to the sewage ratepayers, then we can go back at any point in time, right, and revamp that. And so, and I recently have property now that I'm back to paying the rates again. So I could see either side of the argument, but I don't think the two need to be intimately linked. You could make that argument, but I think we should keep, you know, what needs to be done down there and what we choose to do down there, based on what needs to be done for safety and passing inspections and everything else that needs to happen in the sewage treatment plant. And then we need to, you know, make payment. And who pays in the town may be a separate, but not unimportant issue.
When I spoke with Richard today, he convinced me that he believes that the dewatering is the safest and most environmentally viable way to keep the sludge out of the river. Because if you don't treat the sludge well in the climate that we live in, you run a much higher risk of having an event where you could have damage to the river, and then the DEP gets involved. And no one in this room wants anything to happen to the river, and you don't. When I first went to work for Norway, they were operating under a consent decree with DEP, and you don't want that either. It requires you spending a lot of money on a lot of things in order to get free of it. So I think years ago, you know, I might not agree with everything that was done, but you know, they made the decision to proceed along this path, and it's certainly something that there's some merit to the way you're at today. I hear what you're saying, and I encourage you to make that argument, but I don't think this is frivolous, by any means. I think it's an accepted way to deal with the problems that the town faces.
So on these bonds, it says bonds outstanding by the town for $669,000, then bonds wastewater for $908,000. Are those two bonds that the town's already approved?
Yes,
And those are already inactive? They're in,
they're being paid right now.
okay. So we're gonna have a special town meeting, we might have a special town meeting to ask for 1.2 million more
That's correct.
to finish this project.
Yes.
Now, Rick, is this gonna finish the project?
We'll finish at the plant,
Yeah,
yes, that part of it, yeah.
that part of it.
That, there's no other part, this is just, this 1.2 to add to the design, you know, the building, the upgrades, replacement of some worn pumps, upgrading and replacing the safety issues on the decking.
Okay,
This new building is gonna house a blower building. We're gonna update a sludge pump station with new pumps. It's gonna eliminate a confined space entry issue to go down inside this pump station to work. So it's all married into one thing. So you're adding an upgrade to a building, you're reutilizing part of an old plant but making it safer.
okay.
You're gonna eliminate a confined space entry just to go down and do menial work, which now is impractical. We're gonna replace some worn pumps in our influent building, which is crucial to the whole plant's, you know, they're 20-year-old pumps and they're getting scary. And if we have a problem with that, we're in real big problems. We've got to pay for bypass pumping and I don't even want to go down that path. So
So it's gonna pay for all of the
everything that's
improvements
been in this design
and that building that we
and the building
approved?
that you guys, we've approved, we decided to make the building bigger for future, which if we don't follow that design and we change whatever, then it has to get re-engineered because we didn't design that new decking to have a building back on it. So it's gonna check a lot of this, what's left in that 400,000 for redesign, rebidding, or re-engineering it.
The only other costs that I see that'll come up that really aren't in this project are things like rebuilding distant pumping stations.
Well, that's not included in this.
Right.
But
That's
that
not-
is
that's
coming
not
down
in
the
this.
road, don't, you know, it doesn't, I don't wanna say, there is some light at the end of the tunnel, but we still have, you know, a 72 vintage pump station on Mill Hill Pump Station, and we have Clay Tile terrible sewer on Route 2.
Right, so there's still bits and pieces that we're gonna, this isn't gonna solve everything
This isn't
forever.
gonna solve those problems at all.
No, but you can't, I mean,
You have to start.
trying to put all of that
Oh,
into
yeah.
one giant project is,
But it fixed everything at the plant.
at the plant,
Yeah.
And all those
Make it
safety
safe.
concerns and.
yeah,
Make
safety
it
and
safe.
environmental concerns.
Okay.
Now, the one other thing that I'm a little concerned with this is we're building this giant building and I know that it encompasses other things, but the dewatering seems to be the main reason for the building because we need it indoors, right? If we want to use it, right. And the other concern I have with it is that we bought this press used, and I'm just, if you go and look at the trailer that press came in, if the trailer is any indication of how the press was treated as a whole, I'm inclined to wonder how long it will actually last. And we already know that it's going to cost at least 100. What would we spend 100,000 on it?
120.
120.
120.
And that was for a used press. We know we're going to be spending that again if this one doesn't last. Do we have any warranty or anything on
Sorry,
it?
it was 1 year.
1 year and
1
6
year,
months.
so we're through that. Can we purchase a warranty on it? That, you know, could you look into that maybe? Just
Rick, you told me today that you thought that the equipment had been reconditioned to some
The
extent.
press has been reconditioned,
Okay.
the trailer has not been reconditioned. The press, I think that the figures back then, if we were just to buy the press without some of the other stuff that's in the trailer, the controls and what have you, which some of them we utilize and are good and can help make the thing automated operation through SCADA. Some of it we'll never use, you know, because the trailer was a pilot thing that went out on the road. It wasn't used at a plant for dewatering, it was Uber,
Yeah.
the manufacturer's demo, and they go out and dewater sludge and show people how the presses work. So there's not a lot of moving parts to this press. It's a shaft with a screw in it. It's got what wears inside this basket is some type of brushes that are on the screw part of it. After so many hours, or I think maybe like every 3 years or so, you might have to replace the brushes on it. I haven't pulled it apart yet, so I don't know what that entails. I know the whole screw has to come out of it. What, you might get more life, the Uber tech said that depending on what's in your sludge. If there's a lot of grit in it, obviously, it's gonna wear more. So, I can't give you an exact life of the brushes on it, but they talked about a 3-year, using it so many hours a week. That's part of, you know, any piece of equipment does wear.
Yeah.
Norway's process is completely different. They have these big lagoons, and they try to get these bugs to eat the sludge. But because it's the state of Maine, and you get hot days, you get cold days, the bugs sometimes are not motivated to eat the sludge. So every once in a while, you have to hire a company to come dewater the sludge, just like Bethel would do. And it's really expensive. I mean, I think the last time we did it in Norway, it was like $50,000 just to have them come for a couple of weeks. So I guess even though that's a very different process and it's designed to, in their own way, trying to get a different and they thought better way to deal with the sludge, they still didn't defeat the sludge. There's still, you have to do the dewatering and you have to get rid of the sludge, and it's not cheap. And then you have to pay somebody to take it, just like you will here.
Well, Rumford composts their sludge.
Well, one of my options was to take my dryer tape. Something doesn't, they might take bag sludge, but they never take the volume. They want to take 5 or 6 yards at a time. And I had tentatively was going to try to take some to Rumford. Rumford has changed, the superintendent is retired, they have a new superintendent.
All the good ones retire.
And I've been in touch with him several times, hoping that he would take, because I have like 10 yards that I'd like to get rid of before winter. And he is having trouble finding amendment. So they run I think a belt press, which is an older style way of dewatering, makes a much more like cow manure type of sludge. And they compost it. So they're willing to try some, but he currently, I guess he isn't interested in doing our sludge, or is having trouble finding amendment, because probably some mill that he was getting fly ash or something from closed, and so now they're trying to locate a source of amendment, because you have to mix your sludge with an amendment to get everything, you know, of that, put it in the piles and feed it air to get things to go. So,
You need dried shavings, they're not pretty expensive, isn't it?
he is, currently he isn't, he said he's stockpiling his sludge, so he can't take any more. Maybe, I'm hoping that we get things up and going there, and that is an option for us to take our sludge from the dewater sludge if we continue to use the equipment.
South Paris doesn't dewater,
They,
dewater and ship.
they dewater
They
through
ship.
Uber, and now they do not compost down there anymore. They dewater with a Uber, larger than the one we have. It goes into a dumpster, and Waste Management picks it up and takes it to the land. Pretty expensive, but it is another option here. How many times you want to handle it?
I don't even want to talk about it anymore.
Any other questions from the board? All right, so our choice is to put this to the town in a special town meeting or not. And in order to do that, we need a motion.
Well, I guess I'd make a motion that we go ahead and let the governing body decide whether or not we want to.
Any further discussion? December 10th seems like a reasonable date. That gets us in before January 1st, which means we can still, if we decide to do that, we can, if the town decides to do this, we can still make use of the rough contracting bid.
Is that the night of our select board meeting? It is. So we're gonna have a special town meeting and the select board. Yeah. Okay.
What is that?
That is important.
Do you want it somewhere else?
Well, no, but hopefully we'll have a good crowd.
You certainly can decide, and at this time would be the time to make that decision, to move the select board meeting somewhere where there's more capacity. I think it makes some sense for you folks to have it the same night as the select board meeting, whether or not you have room enough here for the, if it was in Norway, we'd have more than enough room. But Bethel may be different.
No, we've had special town meetings that have more than filled this room, and we've had some that have been pretty small.
Yeah.
But I mean, the last one one of the last ones I remember was at Crescent Park School. We used the cafeteria, but not the full auditorium, the full basketball court. But
That's only if it's available.
yeah, only
Yeah.
if it's available on a Monday night.
It should be.
Oh, I was asking.
It's an excellent question.
No, I think it's a good question. Yeah, should we look into Crescent Park School? I mean, that way we
What do you guys think?
are at least making the assumption that lots of people will show up.
I have a feeling where it's concerning.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we have people who are interested on both sides.
Now, if it was a marijuana thing, I'd say we definitely.
Yeah, needing to move over to the full basketball court.
I have no idea what this would
We might need the auditorium at the high school.
So, we have a motion and we have a second. We need to amend that to change the location.
Yeah, your warrant specifies the way your meeting's gonna be, so you could approve your warrant, and and sign it, and trust David and I to make a change.
So what we would do with the clerk's approval would be to, we'll just change the location on the front page.
Right.
So you sign the second page and we'll, if you tell us to, we'll change the location on the front page.
What do you guys think?
Yeah.
But what we will do first is we'll check with the school.
Yes.
Right,
And if the school isn't available, then the assumption is we have to have it here.
right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Is that what you want us to do?
Yeah, that'd be
We'll
great.
do.
And again, an awful lot of people will say, who's paying for this? And ultimately, it's the ratepayers who are
Yeah,
paying for it.
currently under the current
And
structure.
a lot of people will say, that's all I need to know, I don't need to know.
All right, any other questions from the board? All those in favor? Opposed?
I didn't win Andy over.
That's okay. It's good to have a little dissent.
You can retap it.
Absolutely.
Well, I think I'm gonna lose my job over this.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, next is report of the town manager, things the board needs to know.
If you remember, we had a young woman, very bright young woman named Madeline Williams, who came to you and talked to you about disposal of plastic bags at the supermarket, primarily in her mind. and you send her away to further develop her proposed ordinance. And she did, and she came back. And as you directed, I referred her work to the ordinance committee. There's nothing required from you tonight, other than just telling you that she has completed what she said she would do. And when the ordinance committee gets done reviewing her proposed ordinance, then it's up to you to decide what you're going to do. You can accept that, you can reject it, in which case, if you reject what she's brought forward, then she can petition, if she so chooses to. Now, and I met with another engineer today. What street was that on? Chapman Street, thank you. That project has also been delayed. This summer, the construction season was missed, and we had a meeting of the Water District, Sewer Department, and Road Department, and me and the engineer, and we discussed that project. We're going to get it ready to go to bid in February at the latest, and the notion is to get that for next year's construction season. I asked the engineer to recalculate his cost estimates, given the same thing I think maybe holds true to the road projects as it does the sewer projects, and that what might have been a good
Thanks, Bonnie.
estimate 2 years ago,
It's late anticlimactic, sorry.
No, I'm glad to be here.
what might have been a good estimate 2 years ago may not be now. So he's gonna have to update his cost estimates, because if you don't have enough money to do it, then you better face that before you go to bid rather than later.
Right.
If you do have that special town meeting next month, and if, I don't know how much longer my tenure will go, but regardless, I'll be happy to come up to the special town meeting, because I've been working on this. Well, I shouldn't say happy. I thought that I was done with special town meetings, and as it turns out, that's not been the case. But, you know, sometimes you feel professionally obligated to do something, and I'd do that if the town would like that. I may not get another opportunity. I just say that it's been a joy to be here. People are awfully nice. It's been really good to me. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been great, and especially like the folks in the office. They made me feel like very much accepted. It's very much appreciated, and very confident. All the folks in Bethel that I've worked with are very confident. Very good crew.
Thank
You have been a good addition, even if it is temporary.
I am temporary and I'm old.
You keep telling us that.
Coming up here reminds me every day how old I've gotten.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yes, you are.
All right, so moving on to selectmen's concerns, comments, ideas, and goals.
Do we get the report of the town clerk?
I don't know how
I'm sorry, I skipped it.
you care
Report
about
to town, well, we should go into report to
whether you
town clerk.
want.
This would probably be important because I see there's something happening
Yes.
tomorrow. That's,
We have been busy with absentee voting. We've done about 340 absentee ballots, which
Whoa.
is 6 shy of the 2016 presidential. So I have a feeling tomorrow is gonna be crazy busy at the school, and Retta will be up there with me all day. So,
wow.
Do you have enough help?
yes, yes, I have plenty of.
Is this the same thing?
Yep, Scott Sumner's gonna help me in the morning, and then, my husband's gonna help me tomorrow night. I got to come back.
Well, we'll see everyone at the polls. That's exciting. Anything else?
No, thank you.
All
What
right.
time are you open till, from?
8 to 8.
8 to 8.
All right, we're going back to selectmen's concerns, comments, ideas, goals.
I've expressed mine already.
It's fine. Anyone else?
Nope, all set on my part, yes.
Great. Approval of disbursements.
I make a motion to approve journals 2019-15, 2019-16, 2019-17, and warrants 2019-211 and 235.
I'll second
All those in favor? Good. All right, so we'll finish signing these and then we will move into executive session.
Are you having additional people in your first executive session with you?
First executive session, I think what, I don't think so. I think we're good.
Let me,
Unless, do you want to, David, do you want to be in that?
well,
Don was at the same meeting as you
and
were.
I was not.
Okay,
So, but just let me, you don't always have to do everything in executive session. And I'm one who believes that if you don't need to be, perhaps you don't need to be. And there was a meeting of the Ethel Bisbee Committee this week, which Dawn attended. But I think I'm correct when I say that they, simply put, their recommendation is that you should go ahead with the proposed sale that you've met upon. Remember, we had an executive session a month ago, and if that sale is still available, the committee would like you to go ahead with it.
all right.
Now, do you know either one of you two if that sale is still available?
No, I would have to check with the broker.
Okay, but there's nothing else for me to say in executive session other than the committee gave its blessing to it.
Right, okay.
If that, did I say that the right way, Dawn?
Yeah, sounds absolutely, absolutely good to me. I guess, I don't think there's any, what can we add to that?
Right, no, that's fine, if everyone's happy with that. But if anyone would like to discuss it further or talk about other options, then we probably should go into executive session. No? No, Lloyd? All right, well, then that's fine. Do we need to
Pass
vote on
over.
it? Or do we just need to continue on? I think we're,
I think you can just continue.
I think we're all set on that. Okay, great. I will continue with that then tomorrow. And so, next item is another executive session, and this will just be the select board and Jeffrey Cobroff.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
I make a motion to go into executive session to discuss FEMA A 4056A, discussion surrounding housing and the
it. I'll second it.
All those in favor?